they're individuals. But, when I talk to a lot of my fellow market access leaders, most of them are using multiple companies. In fact, I'm just trying to think of anyone I know is really using one company for everything. And I don't think any of them really are, and here's why. It's pretty simple, and I know I've had this conversation, and I've even had this discussion with some of my vendors in the past. I believe in getting different types of viewpoints for different areas. I want the people that are experts in whatever area that I'm working with the RFP, but I also like to have different viewpoints because people do have different experiences and different thoughts as far as how they approach different projects. And if you get it all into one book of business, you're not going to get that viewpoint variation that you would have if you had multiple vendors out there. So that's just my own personal beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of people's personal beliefs. That's the reason I think a company like Brexel is not going to have a lot of vendors that are using, a lot of companies are using them for everything, soup to nuts. They'll get some, but I bet you they're not getting, the majority of them are definitely not giving them all to them.
Hmm.
Now, if you're working with something that's more of in the sales training, not sales training, and but more of the stuff of putting information into the IT systems, then I see companies loading everything up on the one vendor, and they're using those systems that those vendors are supplying. Those type of proposals and those projects, if they're going to move everything over to a new database, it's going to be, as an example, Symphony or Viva is going to have everything. You can't really cut and pick pieces out of other systems. You can ask them if they can make a revision, but generally those guys are so inflexible that they won't do it. They sell a system they sell. Here's what it is. Take it or leave it. So I see that as being one vendor. But when you're doing RFPs for different projects, especially around market access, I haven't seen a lot of the same vendors getting everything. Covance, Lash, they do a lot of business. They don't do as much business as they used to just because there's a lot more companies out there. They still have a good chunks of business, obviously, but they're not dominating manufacturers like they used to historically. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they had a lot more books of business across the board with manufacturers. Not today anymore.
Mm.
There's too many companies to pick and choose from.
Mm. And now, going back to the vendors you're working with today, like NME and Symphony and Incentive, how good of a job are they doing at addressing those problems that keep you up at night with market access? Are they really, how well are they aligned with your major needs?
I'll tell you what, I'm very, very happy with them. I think they've been spot on for everything I've needed. The things that they can't correct or what I need are things that are outside of their ability to change. And it mostly comes to the point where I go back to the coding as an example and the technology and the payment methodology. I can't change how CMS is reimbursing. They can't change how CMS is reimbursing. We attend all these conferences. CDI is a big vendor as an example. They put out conferences all the time talking about the Medicare changes and CMS rulings and potential proposals that are coming down the pipeline. The only one that can really affect that are the provider groups. They will listen to the provider groups like ASCO and ASH, et cetera, to a degree. I mean, there's some things that even their hands are tied that they can't do because the legislation hasn't allowed them to do that. But they'll listen to provider groups. They're not going to listen to a vendor or to a manufacturer. They can't. We're not even allowed to give requests in a lot of presentations in a lot of cases. There's a few limited areas that don't allow a manufacturer to present or a vendor to present, but for the most part, it's usually done by the physician groups,
mm-hmm.
societies.
Are there any areas where you see vendors overall falling short, or anything that you wish vendors could do differently? If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing about working with your vendors, what would it be?
If I thought they all had the same capabilities and same strengths, then it would probably be a lot easier to do one vendor because it's simple. I'd have one purchase order, one vendor in the system that I'd have to go through. I wouldn't have to go ahead and fill out new documentation for 5 different vendors for 5 different projects. It's a waste of time for me. Unfortunately, it's not a waste.